Hello again, and welcome to SDGC for Thursday, May 14th. If you're not aware, SDGC, God damn it, SDGC meets right here each and every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we discuss the latest gaming headlines with a wide variety of panel members and guests, as well as weekly pre-recorded content. If you've been along for the ride so far, welcome home. And if not, hey, feel free to stick around and maybe throw us a sub. Every single podcast is archived the next day on our YouTube channel for those who like to watch. And you can find us on all major podcast services for those who like to listen.
John,
now,
was there something funny?
No.
Was something funny?
Hey, John, can you turn your gain down on your mic a little bit?
My gain down? Do you want me to do? I can't stop my gains, Derek. There's no stopping my
you are
gains.
peaking your mic so fucking bad right now.
Okay, is that better? Is that better?
It's better if you're not right up chewing your mic, yes, because you're
right,
a big
cool.
boy with big boy projection, and when you get right up on the mic and you also yell, it is very powerful.
Okay, all right. So now I'm down. I'm back down. I'm back down here. So I want to open the podcast tonight with two very important things. One, thank you so much to Derek for that awesome new intro video we have. Derek worked really hard on that, and also the starting soon graphic,
and also
as
our
well.
new outro graphic.
We've got an outro now.
I learned After Effects, and I went from 48 hours it took me 48 hours to learn about it and churn all this stuff out, so I might have missed a minor calling, but it's too late in my life to adjust its direction. I'm going to be broke forever.
Well, after the podcast ends, stick around for 10 seconds. We have a super chill new outro, and we have Julian to thank for the music. So Julian, I know you'll listen to this. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it, dude. Derek, again. Julian is amazing, and Derek, thank you again, man, for all your hard work, dude. Like, seriously,
thank you. It distracts me from the world.
Yeah, we all need that right now. And the other thing I wanted to address is you may have seen my new banner on Twitter, which is a cartoon. It's an art of me and Isabel. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that art just for a second, but more specifically, the person who drew it. I want to say, her name is Jayla.
Should I throw this on the screen?
Yeah, go throw it on the screen for people who for people who haven't seen this.
It is up.
There we go. So this was drawn by Jayla, age 13. She's in the 8th grade, and she is extremely talented. Her teacher reached out to me and asked if she could draw some art for me, and I said, absolutely, yes, I would love that. But the really cool thing about this is that Jayla wants to be an artist for game dev when she's when she's old enough to join the workforce. And I just wanted to say, Jayla, thank you so much for this incredible artwork. You are extremely talented, and if this is any indication, I mean, you're 13 years old and you're already doing stuff like this.
She's
if this
in
is
chat.
What's that? Is she in chat? Hey, Jayla. All right, yeah, there she is. All right, yeah. I thought she was going to be watching tonight. But yeah, no, Jayla, this is incredible work. And if this is any indication of what kind of talent you have, you are going to go very far in this industry. We really look forward to seeing how you are going to contribute in a few years. And I have also asked Jayla's teacher to communicate to her that I'm hoping she would be so kind as to do us some official artwork that we can actually use for our branding, our podcast branding. I would really, really love that. So I'm going to send Jayla's teacher some stuff to work with, and we'll see what you're able to cook up. But thank you again, Jayla, for that incredible artwork. I am so touched that you drew that, and I just really appreciate it. And right now, everything's kind of messed up, but hold on to your dreams. Hold on to what you want to do, because right now I think we all need that more than ever. You're going to go far. Thank you again.
I'm going to curse with a teenager in the chat, so apologies in advance as if they haven't heard these words before. But I just want to point out how fucking punk rock it is to be listening to like not exactly a tiny garage gaming podcast, but still for kids that age who are into gaming are probably like, oh yeah, I'll watch Kind of Funny. Oh, I'll watch PewDiePie, I listen to X and X podcast, and it's like, oh no, I only listen to podcasts you've never heard of. Like,
Well, you know,
fuck yeah. That is genuinely punk rock right there.
The Venn diagram of SDGC listeners and PewDiePie.
Yeah, not a lot of overlap there.
It's just two circles.
Oh, good. Somebody gifted JLo a sub. I was going to suggest that I was going to do that myself, but there, it's already taken care of. There we go. All right. So we got a lot to talk about tonight.
I can't wait to interview her. She's gonna be an artist in the games.
Give it time. It'll happen.
Yeah,
It'll happen.
And did you see? I mean, Webb, did you see how good
That's
is?
really good stuff for that.
That is really good. Like I was floored.
Right there.
No, dude, seriously, I was floored when I found out that she was in the 8th grade. I was like, no, because my son is 12, and buddy, I love you. His art is okay. I love you, bud, but he actually listens to this, so he's gonna hear that. But
Dad, I drew you, son. Why do I look like mashed potatoes? I don't.
I love you, buddy, but it was just I was floored. I could not believe it. Yeah, and Reb, one day you're gonna get to interview her.
It's gonna happen.
John, I swear to Christ, I cannot wait for you to get this new microphone so we can stop you peeking so goddamn hard.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. Okay, look, I'm a big. I can't be contained by any microphone. I'm a big personality.
You can. We need
I'm
the
just
right
glad that
one.
it's not me, because whenever I do the games industry podcast, everybody else is like chill NPR business voices, and I'm like, Mario!
It's like Jeff last week with the Ira Glass.
Oh my God,
intro.
that was incredible.
That was great.
I want him to do the intro whenever he's on. Just for that.
It was incredible.
Yeah,
I want to listen. I want him to get like one of those really nice like mics and do like some ASMR SDGC intro reading.
Jeff and I should do like an SDGC read off, kind of like you know how you have those Old Spice commercials where Terry Crews and the other guy, like he's all loud, and then the other guy's very calm and quiet, and they're like they've got a feud. Yeah, Isaiah Mustafa. He was in It Chapter 2, by the way.
Is he?
We got topics, buddy.
Yeah, we do got to keep moving.
Okay, sorry.
Shit.
Anyway, we got a lot to talk about
Zach opens another bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's opening the wine?
Zach, at some point tonight, I want you to tell me about the notes. Okay.
It's a healthy pour.
That is a healthy pour.
Like a D sharp. Wrong kind of note.
I'm interested
That's
to
the
see
wrong kind of
how
note,
the evening goes, because if you watch the show, I believe it was just last week,
was
Zach
last
was on
week.
margaritas, and this week it's wine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just very much enjoying this.
Oh
Nice
yeah,
and
no,
balanced.
I give it another half an hour before things start to get zesty. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We've got Samurai Ghosts, we've got Paper Plumbers, we've got Unreal Engines. But first, why don't we start with what we've all been playing? And who wants to kick us off? I don't care
I'll
who
give
it is.
you one fucking guess. Oh, sorry. Can I say fuck anymore? I will give you one fucking guess as to what I'm playing.
Halo 2.
Halo 2 anniversary.
Gears Tactics.
Y'all, you all know. I am still playing Animal Crossing. I have not stopped. I am still playing it every single day. I'm playing a few other things too. What did I play last weekend? Oh, I've been playing a little bit, very, very slowly. I've been working my way through Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which is an absolutely incredible game. It is also so much.
Yeah.
It is
a lot.
It's very good.
So much. In a very good way. I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, it is absolutely incredible.
It's like intentionally very overwhelming.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming, and I think especially, I am the kind of person who does not typically play games that are even sort of gently dark or like whatever. And so playing a game that is like, I can't do it like after work in the evening when I am stressed out and tired. I've been able to play it for like an hour or two on like Saturdays when the sunshine is out or whatever, and just to kind of like sink into it for a bit and then come out and reflect on it. So I so far I haven't even gotten very far. Like, I've done the intro and I did the fire giant area, and I'm about to go to the illusion side of those two doors at the beginning. So but it's an absolutely incredible game. Really, really well made. And
What are you playing it on, Reb?
PC.
PC. Are you playing with
The only thing I
playing
have
with
to play it
headphones?
on. Oh yeah.
Okay, because this, like I was gonna say, this is a game that practically
Oh, yeah.
demands headphones.
Yeah, it's so well done. I still have Assassin's Creed Odyssey on hold. I know I said I was going to start playing that last week, I think, but I am waiting on my controller to arrive that I've ordered, and I made the mistake of ordering it from GameStop, so who knows when that'll show up. hopefully this coming week. But yeah, I'm playing Animal Crossing, and I had the absolute delight to go to Rami Ismail's suhoor. He's been doing these really wonderful things where so he's observing Ramadan, and I'm gonna try to get this right because his time zones are different, so it's backwards. He's been doing the meal that you eat very early in the day before you do the all-day fast, and then the meal that you eat when you break the fast in the evening. And what he's been doing is, normally Ramadan is a very social experience, and he wants to, have this like social experience with other people and this kind of celebration with other people, but he can't have that because we're all social distancing. So he's been inviting people through, he has this sign-up sheet. He's been inviting people to his Animal Crossing island to just sort of sit with him for an hour and talk and just, be around while he's, eating these meals. And so I went to one of them, and it was just really lovely and laid back. And we hung out on his island, and he had some decor up. And we all brought fruit to share, and I brought some of my hybrid flowers and planted them, and we ran around his island and messed around with the stuff in his house, and it was really cool. There were 5 of us total there on my visit. I know he was getting more people there towards the beginning because there's some screenshots of 8 people at a time doing that, but it was really, really relaxing and nice, and I'm glad that I did it. I love all the different kinds of social events that game is opening up opportunities to do, and have those experiences with people. And yeah, I'm glad it exists.
I mean, look at what Gary was doing with his talk show. I mean, there is so much potential in Animal Crossing to get incredibly creative, and it's amazing watching people do that.
There is, yeah. Animal talking is really, really cool.
Reb, did you have anything else you wanted to mention before we move on?
I don't think so. I've been pretty chill lately.
Okay. I'll go next if nobody minds. So
one thing. Next week on Thursday, I will have the opportunity. I will be off of an embargo, and I will be able to talk about my gameplay experience with an upcoming title. So I'll have something.
Hey, let's do anniversary.
Okay, cool.
Man, you.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. Continue, please.
No, it's fine. So I've been juggling a lot. I've got a Vita that I modded, and I picked up Final Fantasy Tactics: War of the Lions, which released for it's a port of the original PlayStation game with a much better translation. But it was also plagued by massive slowdown that Square Enix actually put in there on purpose. I don't know why they did that, but that's a part of the game. So there is a patch out there that actually gets rid of the slowdown. So I downloaded that. I've been playing Final Fantasy Tactics, which is one of my favorite games of all time. I've been playing a little Advance Wars 2 on my Game Boy Advance because at this point I have resigned myself to the fact that the Analog Pocket is not coming this year. And so I've got all these Game Boy Advance games that I've been waiting to replay on the Pocket, but I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm just going to play them all on my modded Game Boy Advance. So I'm playing Advance Wars 2. Of course, that's a fucking classic GBA game. I absolutely love Advance Wars. I downloaded Color Splash today to replay that because I don't care what anybody says. Color Splash is a good Paper Mario game.
Fucking thank you. Thank you.
There has not been a bad Paper Mario game.
I like Color Splash fine. It was great.
Color Splash is great. Like I don't
amazing. It didn't blow my mind in any way. It wasn't this is a genre defining game or anything. But yeah, it was what 20 hours of Mario.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily put 40 hours into that game.
Okay, it's been a while. I might be underplaying how many hours.
I mean, it's a big game. It's a big game. Yeah, but I mean, I never understood the hate for Color Splash. It's a good game.
It was lovely.
What else? And I've been playing Final Fantasy Tactics Type 0 on the PSP, which never actually came to the United States. Of course, I'm playing it on my modded Vita with an English translation patch. And the game on PS4 when it came out, it was not a good port. They added a blur effect to switching the camera around. You know what I'm talking about, Derek?
Yeah,
I had to put the game down after 30 minutes. It made me want to vomit.
Like anime speed lines blurring every time you move the camera 3 degrees.
Yeah.
I am somebody that is usually very pro motion blur. It is so bad in that. I believe they have patched it a couple times to kind of tone down the shutter speed because it was absolutely ridiculous.
No, I literally I had to stop playing. I started getting my stomach started churning. But I've been playing it on PSP, and not only is visually it's just a much better fit for a handheld system. the translation, the English the voices are still obviously in Japanese, but everything, all the text is in English. The music's better, and I'm really enjoying it. So I've been going back. Other than playing a lot of Smash Brothers, I've been going back and playing a lot of older games before Xenoblade Chronicles comes out. That's what I've been doing.
May I go real quick so that I can then go and fetch bourbon before we get to the heavy topics?
No, yes,
Oh,
you may.
yeah, you can go right now.
Yes, you may. You may.
And also, really quick, I have been playing Adobe After Effects for the past little bit.
Ubisoft's been
that
playing it
game.
too. Did you catch their stream?
Yeah.
It's good.
But I haven't had a whole lot of time to play stuff this week. I've played some Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I'm enjoying. I'm a little later than everybody else, I recognize, but I'm pretty far into it by now. I think I'm in the last open point with side quests before you get into the final linear chunk of the game.
Did Chapter 9 make you ascend, Derek?
Chapter 9 was fucking incredible, which is not to say that there is zero problematic elements about that section still, but broadly speaking, incredible. It was unfair. I will say that uncomfortable things happened with a masseuse while my girlfriend was in the room. And she was very, very amused by how obviously uncomfortable I was with what was happening. And then, but other than that, I've been replaying StarCraft 2's campaign. So I wanted a good RTS campaign. I'm eagerly awaiting Age of Empires 4, which we have no idea how far out that is, I think, at this point. So StarCraft 2 has the best campaign in any RTS game. It's just a good piece of comfort food. Tomorrow on stream, I am starting A Plague Tale: Innocence, which everyone tells me I desperately needed to play.
You've never played that?
No. So it's gonna be.
I'm gonna tune in for that. Yeah,
I'm really excited. So that'll be happening tomorrow. That is my reward to myself to start something new and fresh and fun, because I put in all this time in creative work stuff. But
Lumen,
that's it.
thank you for gifting so many subs.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
nice.
What a
Seriously,
what a
wow.
king. That's all I've been doing. Most of my gameplay time has been After Effects.
Respect.
All right.
Justin,
Derek,
Justin, what are you playing?
yeah, Justin, let's go.
So I've been continuing my Uncharted series replay. Last week I had just started it and was playing, and I was probably about halfway through Drake's Fortune. Since then, I have finished Drake's Fortune, I have finished Uncharted 2, and I'm a little less than halfway through Uncharted 3 right now. And playing 1 and 2 back to back in 2020 is shocking.
Especially Uncharted 1
Uncharted 1 feels just straight up old now. Not even just dated. It feels like an old game. Uncharted 2 feels like a modern release. I think, as blown away as it was when it released, I don't think I fully appreciated just how much of an improvement it was over the first game, because there's still stuff done perfectly well in that game that wouldn't be out of place in a modern AAA release. That said, I still do find the last section of it where it's just combat encounter after combat encounter and after combat encounter a little bit tedious, but overall that game's still a classic.
Oh,
It's
dude, when
super
you fight Lazarevich, I maintain to this day is one of the worst boss fights in gaming history. It's bad.
Well, it's also even in the remaster collection, it's still bugged because the normal difficulty is actually the hardest version of the fight, and the higher difficulties are actually lower. Because I remember when I played it through on higher difficulty and I got through them really easily. I'm like, wait, what? But yeah, that bug's still in the remaster collection, which is very funny. But and then last night I started Uncharted 3, or maybe it was the night before. I started Uncharted 3 just to, I was planning on just to play a little bit of it, and then just blew through the first 5.5, 6 chapters or something. I really love the intro to that game. I like 3 a lot. I know it's one of the more divisive entries in the series.
I love it. It's my favorite in the series.
I'm a really, really big fan of that one. So, I mentioned before, like the Uncharted series is like very much gaming comfort food for me. They put a big smile on my face. Like I've been a fan of pulp adventure stuff since I was a little kid. You know, they're what kind of made me a big fan of Naughty Dog and their work. So it's been really, really fun to go play them through. So I'm basically about the halfway point because I think I'm just gonna stick with it and go instead of just doing the you know Nathan Drake collection, go through 4 and Lost Legacy while I'm in this mood. So I'm just gonna keep that going.
Speaking of moods,
Zach,
Derek.
what's your mood today?
What's my mood today?
Yeah, what's your video?
Is this how we ask? Okay, listen. We have actual topics, so I will let you guys pick. I have been playing 3 games, and I will briefly talk about 2 of the 3. Your options: Halo 2 Anniversary, Apex Legends, or Gears of War 5. Each of them have new things for me to talk about. So
we got to talk about Halo 2 Anniversary.
Okay,
I think.
So
Also, sorry, I was trying to play it like we were all gonna just deliberately ignore Derek's hat, but John's face was so disappointed. Derek, the hat's great.
The hat is good. The hat is good.
That is
All
very
right.
good.
All right. So Halo 2 Anniversary just hit PC. It looks like it's having some technical difficulties, which is not surprising, although disappointing, considering that game is held together. Considering the Master Chief
I'm
Collection
not
is like,
surprised with you, but I'm just disappointed.
I mean, Halo or the Master Chief Collection is basically held together by like shoestring and duct tape from like I think it had like several different studios help them put that game together, and it's just a mishmash of code that like barely functioned on Xbox One after a bunch of patches. So it's shocking that a whole bunch of Xbox 360 ports are even working on PC. But it hit PC, and Big Team Battle mixed with like the remixed HD maps are very, very good. The Blood Gulch remake is just supremely good. I really like it. I'm just very happy to see Halo come to PC. I'm just an advocate for having games be able to be played on platforms going forward, and obviously like that means Xbox's backwards compatibility is important to me, but also seeing these things come to PC is just great. A lot of people play these games growing up, and it's awesome that more people have an opportunity to play them on different platforms, and it's been good. But I also want to talk about Apex Legends. I think I've made that decision. The new season just hit, and it's very good. They just added a new character, Loba, who has some very, very cool abilities, some iffy choices around the way they designed her aesthetic, and like she's like the first character to me that feels very sexualized in Apex, and that's kind of frustrating to see, considering like it is their first Latina character in the game, and like they over sexualize it, which is like pretty frustrating. But her character abilities are very good, which is cool, and adds and like she's almost feels like an essential character in a squad in the same way that Lifeline as a healer was an essential character. But they've also just remixed the first map from the game and are starting to bring in some of what you would see from like Fortnite in terms of level changes, but they've also brought in narrative quests this season, which means every time you play a match, once a day there will be you can collect like a treasure pack in the game, and after you collect a certain number of treasure packs, you unlock new story that's like basically like a text quest that you get to like unpack these things that are happening in the season and unlock little quest rewards. But it's just cool to see another BR game kind of take on ways you can do narrative storytelling. That game continues to be very fun, and I continue to be very bad at it. And I wish Titanfall 3 was a game that was coming, because I used to be good at Titanfall.
Zach, let me ask you this: can you still, can you do solo? Can you play solo in Apex yet, or are you still bound to 3-person teams?
So no, so they're adding different stuff. They're basically like trios is like the core of what Apex is, and everything is balanced around that. But just last night I played duos with Maddie, and it's like they have an official duos mode. They have solos on occasion, and they do other like little events that kind of tweak that. So they're kind of playing with that formula, but like really the way character abilities are built to play together, right? Like one of the characters is all about being able to revive people quickly and efficiently and help them. Like solos just really wouldn't work for a character-driven game. I think that I'm gonna break my own rule and immediately just really quickly talk about Gears of War 5.
I was just gonna add that I want to play Apex with you sometime, and also it was Respawn's 10th anniversary today, so
yeah,
which is for them.
Which means three games and 3 bangers. That's their track.
They also didn't. Yeah.
games. Star Wars.
4 games.
Yeah, it
4
was good.
games.
Star Wars. They did Star
So
Wars.
3.5 bangers.
Yeah.
Spicy.
I want crossplay for Apex
Yeah,
so bad.
yeah.
I still think it is my favorite BR game.
It's cool.
From what I've played, but none of my friends play on PS4, so I have nobody to play it with. Like I've put the most time into Call of Duty Warzone explicitly because it has crossplay and I can play with my friends on other platforms. So I really hope Apex gets crossplay soon because I want to play it more.
Yeah, it's wild that EA and both EA and Ubisoft are like AAA studios that I think are doing really interesting things in the PvP space, and they're also like studios who have said, or publishers who have said, we're interested in crossplay, and like 2 years later have nothing to show for it. So that's pretty frustrating.
I think Siege is finally getting it this fall.
Hopefully.
I think they've at least put out a timetable for that, but none of EA's studios, I think, have said anything about it.
All right, I'm gonna quickly touch on Gears 5. No one cares, but I just need to get it out. All right.
Get it out,
because
Zach.
you
So since like December, the coalition has actually seen some departures in terms of its management. Rod Ferguson, who is like the longtime helm of Gears 1, 2, 3, Ultimate Edition 4, and 5, has left to go to Blizzard. He's previously left Microsoft in the past. He's the one who helped ship BioShock Infinite. He is known as the shipper. He is someone who's really good at taking broken projects or projects that are struggling and putting them together into cohesive packages. He's good at that. But also, because he's been so tied to Gears of War, I think it's possible that he is somebody in the executive role who has held the series back from really pushing its boundaries. And so him departing was both an alarm because holy shit, somebody who's like a major, like very, very, very successful, great track record employee for Microsoft's management has left. But also the studio is finally doing some pretty cool things to try to make Gears 5 better. One of the things they tried with Gears 5 at launch was to introduce hero classes, which would allow certain characters to have certain abilities in various modes, whether that's Horde or Escape or whatever. And ultimately what that did was made it so there's far fewer characters than in the past. In the past, characters were just a skin, which is kind of what I preferred. But because every character had an ability, they ended up shipping with like something like a third as many characters as in the past. And this week they finally said, hey, we're going to drop that. We're going to start releasing characters faster, and we're going to start releasing maps faster, and we're going to come back to adding abilities to characters later on, but they're no longer going to slow down our content drop, which is kind of a big deal for a AAA game that feels like Microsoft's. I think Gears 5 is a game I love, and also a game that like Microsoft, I feel like, has kind of not been able to deliver on. It feels like their first big struggle in games as a service. Like yeah, Sea of Thieves had a rough launch, but I think Rare quickly figured out what they needed to do in that space, and it just feels like Gears has struggled, but maybe showing promise of turning around. So I don't know. I'm gonna keep playing that game and pretend that I'm not like one of the dozens who are still interested in Gears 5.
Are there not many people playing the multiplayer?
Oh no, it's pretty popular. No, it's still pretty popular.
Okay, I was about to say, man, those games usually have a long shelf life.
Yeah, they do well. They're very like Gears of War has always been a niche series that has a very dedicated fan base. And so what you'll find is like the game has crossplay now, which is great. But what's really popular is like the Gears esports will do a thing where like, hey, if you watch this weekend, you're gonna get some weapon skins, and then everyone in multiplayer has those skins because everyone is participating in like watching their esports events. So it's very niche, but they have a very dedicated, consistent player base. And so that's a dangerous thing for a studio to have because if you alienate them, you have alienated your small niche base.
Yep.
So it's been interesting to kind of watch them pivot, and I actually am seeing more flexibility from them now after we've seen an executive depart, which is interesting, and I'm both excited and deeply worried for the coalition going into next gen without an official replacement for Rod Ferguson. But it's cool. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm done talking about Gears 4 and Apex and Halo.
I mean, Zach, is there anything else you want to about Gears 5? You just need to get off your chest. Like, is there anything you've got to? Any lingering emotions there?
Wait, they did just bring back the unlockable Gears of War 2 signature curb stomp, which is exactly what it sounds like. I don't need to say more, but I am excited. I am excited. It is very crunchy, and when I locked it, my wife walked in the room and she said, "That's gross," and walked out. And that's it for our interaction around Gears of War today.
Zach,
We should get into our real topic.
Zach,
It's kind of like
known
when my
big
wife
fan-
walked in during. It's kind of like when my wife walked in during the Final Fantasy VII massage scene. Good stuff. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about tonight. I thought we might start. You guys tell me if you disagree, but I thought we might start with Paper Mario because I think it's the smallest topic we have. Unless we want to talk about Unreal Engine first.
I think let's get the big topic out of the way and then close out with.
You
I
wanna do
want to
Unreal
talk about
Engine first?
Paper Mario and I do want to talk about Ghost of Tsushima, but I don't know how much there is to talk about either of those. But we could also just stretch them out if we needed to. So let's talk about the meat. Let's talk
about
talk
let's
about
do
the
the meat.
beef.
We'll hit the potatoes later.
I'm just
Justin,
a
do you
simple
wanna...
farmer, but I do believe that we ought to perhaps talk about this here update to the Unreal Engine system.
Justin, do you want to kick off our Unreal Engine system discussion?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I actually was reading up on this, so like if anybody needs like layman discussions of some of the tech that they were showing, I think I'm kind of prepared to do that because it's really cool stuff from a production side of things. Yesterday, Epic revealed the Unreal Engine 5, which came as a big surprise to a lot of people because I think people were really expecting Unreal Engine 4 to kind of hang around for a while, especially since like the big 4.25 update just came out for Unreal Engine last week or the week before. So it was kind of a big surprise, and on top of that, the other surprise was that it was running on PlayStation 5, which it was the first footage that we have seen running on PS5 hardware.
Yeah,
apparently
it
it wasn't just like a video either. Like it's something that you could pick
No,
up a
it
controller
was-
and actually manipulate.
Yeah,
It was
that
real time.
That was the thing that I thought was very cool about that specific demo is because usually Epic's tech demos are really cool, like cutscenes. They're pre-rendered cinematic sequences, but this was really neat because it was actually basically a small level in a game. They played through it, they moved the character through the environment, and they would pause it at times and, play around with... It essentially looked like a photo mode menu.
I actually
but it allowed them to kind of...
I saw a tweet from somebody, might have been Matt Kim at IGN, saying that that demo would have been playable at GDC.
Yes,
I saw that too.
It was originally supposed to be part of a GDC presentation that was going to be playable on the show, on that show floor.
Yeah.
But it was really neat. So there's kind of two main pieces of technology that they were showing off in this demo, and then a couple other really small ones that we only got quick glimpses of. The first one is the new Lumen technology, which is a technique for global illumination. And global illumination is when it's basically the bounces that light does after it turns on. So there's one point where they actually turn off Lumen entirely, and you just see the light coming in from.
Yeah, I thought
they're in a cave, and it's just the sun above, and they turn off Lumen, and everything goes pitch black except for the light coming in.
It was really
from the
cool.
sun.
The sort of global illumination that
the
they talk about
cool
with Lumen is like one step behind ray tracing. Like it's not true ray tracing, but it's basically the closest we've ever come
It will
to
also
that.
play. It will also play nicely with ray tracing if a developer
Yes.
chooses to implement
Yes, and they have said that. And also, the other, the kind of the big advantage it actually has over ray tracing is it can calculate way more bounces. It's near infinite bounces, where even on like really high-end ray trace GI that we have in games now, it's only like between 3 and 8 bounces. So it's a big deal. Like there was only 2 actual light sources in this entire demo. It was the sun and the little orb that the main character has. This is kind of a big deal because it makes it so that developers no longer have to place like fake lights or hide them within the scenery.
Lighting is an actual
that
real
can be a
bitch
long-
for developers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge deal, especially when they're doing baked lighting. And baking has been the way that a lot of developers do global illumination, and it can take hours. If you move like a light a little bit, it can take hours to bake in global illumination. You have to design all the art and stuff around it. This, if they just want to move a light or see how it will affect a scene, they can do it in seconds. It's really cool. It looks great, and it's really great for developers.
am I the only person who now wants developers and to describe the power of these new consoles in terms of bounces?
No.
That's just something I want now.
I'm
Like,
still
I
particularly
want,
fond
like,
of GameCubes, to be honest with you, but
like how many bounces can one teraflop hold? That's the question that I have.
So
How
Justin,
many triangles are in a teraflop?
There's a lot of
Oh, well,
triangles in a
the
teraflop.
how many
All right,
ounces
Talk about
are
some triangles
Hang on,
now.
so-
Yeah.
How
how many ounces are
What
in
do
a
you
flip?
know about triangles? What do you know about triangles?
So I think a really quick, genuinely good recap point here is that this is in development engine tech, which will be hitting developers around this time next year, maybe a little bit earlier, and then it will be available more widely by the end of 2021, which essentially means we will not be seeing games utilizing Unreal Engine 5 until 2022 or later. Thankfully, Epic has been building stuff into Unreal Engine 4.25, which will allow them to seamlessly upgrade to Unreal Engine 5 specs, which is really good for people who don't know. When Epic transitioned from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4, there was a tremendous amount of compatibility issues that were a huge problem for developers. One thing, Justin, that I think we didn't touch on is there is potentially room here for these improvements in Unreal Engine 5 to actually reduce workloads on developers, potentially. Which would potentially, again, reduce crunch, or, management might say, well, you're not doing this as much, so why don't you do this?
Yeah.
Why
so,
don't you? Yeah, we can now. This just
Crunch
frees
is
you
a
up
moving
for other
target.
projects.
Crunch is a
Yeah.
moving target, but like undeniably that demo is very impressive.
So one thing I will notice, or one thing I did notice about that demo, and I'm free to disagree with me, but while everything from the lighting to the texture work to the character animations was massively impressive, especially when I learned that everything was running in real time and this is something you can actually play. I still thought the character model was nothing that I haven't seen on Xbox One or PS4. Like it was decidedly current gen.
There's
to me.
other tech demos for that,
Yeah,
John.
the most
they have
exciting...
other Unreal tech demos that look bonkers for the characters. This one was focused on Lumen and the nanite system.
Yeah, the most exciting thing about this tech demo is less about what it looked like on screen, although like the environment did look gorgeous compared to most of what we expect out of games nowadays. Although again, like Epic had the time to do that and knows their own engine better than anyone else, and people are probably not going to get those kind of results out the gate. But it's about the ease that it places on developers, right? A ton of time is spent on lighting in games. So if you have in-engine global illumination, that potentially streamlines things quite a bit in that regard. And a lot of times when Unreal Engine adopts and pushes out something like that, you see other engines become quick to incorporate it because you have to remain competitive. You have to be worth getting over Unreal Engine in some way. That and then the nanite system, which Justin hadn't had a chance to get to yet, which is another thing that really basically what it is you can put in, they were saying cinematic quality assets. In other words, models and textures that are the kind of quality they use when rendering scenes for Hollywood films, far, far above what we use for games.
I think they said up to 8K, right?
Yeah, on the textures.
Yeah.
That's what they were using for the
little
Quixel
rocks.
scans.
The little rocks in this demo were 1 million polygons with 8K textures
Yeah.
on them.
Yeah.
Just that's a hedonistic amount of detail for that asset.
Yes. But what the engine is apparently doing, and they did not like 100% explain the science behind how the engine is capable of doing this, which is the thing that always makes me skeptical. But it's apparently taking these incredibly high quality assets and basically going, okay, well, all of this is wasted because if you have 80 triangles going into 1 pixel of space, then you don't need to worry about those 80 triangles. I'm not sure how the engine is actually deciding how to render that down into 1 pixel space and actually save time, but that demo was running on PlayStation 5 hardware, we're told. I'm not the type to say that Unreal or that Epic was lying about something like that. But
I don't.
I don't
like,
believe that they're lying.
I don't.
But,
No, I don't think they were lying at all.
I would
But
like to know the science, the actual science behind the fucking magic.
so I think it's important.
I
to remember
assume stuff like that'll come out like around
Right.
SIGGRAPH or something when they do like the big presentations.
Well, I want to kick something over to Reb real quick, and because I want to make sure she doesn't get locked out of the conversation. But something that I've been thinking about is that we probably, and I think Zach touched on this a little earlier, is that games aren't going to look like this the first year and a half of these systems, because everything is going to have to play on PS4 and Xbox One as well.
And phones.
And
everything.
phones, yeah. Like, I mean, it's going to take a while for this technology to actually come into its own, and it's not something that is going to happen right out the gate. And of course, I don't blame them for glossing over that, but that's something that needs to be said. And Reb, I wanted to see what you thought about, like, how long do you think we will see games that come out for these new consoles that have to play on current gen systems? Because when PS4 and Xbox One launched, it was about a year, and I have a feeling it's going to be longer this time.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that. I think it might be a little bit longer. I mean, there might be several reasons for that. I think a whole bunch of stuff, whether we know about it or not, is just going to get, like, everybody's timeline is going to shift, like, at least a couple months, if not longer, just because of all this COVID stuff.
That's a good point.
So that on its face is just going to delay things to begin with. And then, yeah, I think especially, so it seems like Microsoft is going, at least with their first party stuff and their game studios games, it seems like what they've said is that everything is going to be compatible with Xbox One. Am I right about that? They've said that?
Right.
Until
Next fall.
Yeah, basically, at least until 2021.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I would expect it to go on for a little bit longer than that with some games, but yeah, I like at least for that long. And then I don't know, the Sony situation is interesting because the PS4, wow, they have sold a lot of units of that.
Quite a bit.
What was it? Their financials this week. What was the number?
It was like 110 million or something.
110.
Just
Over
there's so
110
many
million.
PS4s, and it is going to take, regardless of, even if the PS5 comes out and it just has all these great features and it looks beautiful and it's just a rousing success, it takes a long time to sell 110 units of any, or 110 million units of anything. And so getting that install base caught up is going to take some time. So I think that, regardless of what they would like, I mean, eventually I'm sure they will be, even at launch, they might be doing exclusives. I have no idea what Sony's plan is. But I think for a long time, at least for third-party studios, it's going to make an awful lot more sense to do things on both PS4 and PS5, just because there are so many people that have a PS4. Like, it's just ridiculous. I don't think Microsoft has quite that same problem, but I think that they are going to try to urge, at least their internal studios to keep things compatible for the Xbox One for as long as possible.
So,
yeah.
And speaking of which, Reb, I want to throw it back to you. Along with this beautiful presentation, Epic also announced some
Thank you. You got what I was waiting for.
Yeah, they also announced some tweaks to their business plan. And I also wondered if you'd be willing to juxtapose those with that of Steam's and how they're treating opposite ends of the market. Are you?
Yeah,
you
so,
got this. You know what you're
the two big announcements that I was very attached to in all of this is, one, Epic had announced with this that starting yesterday, and retroactive to the beginning of the year, they are, so previously the way that you got to use Unreal Engine if you were a developer is it was free, you got it. Then if you made a game with it, all royalties, you had to pay 5% royalties to Epic on all the profit you made above, or all the revenue you made of, like, I think it was $50,000 or more. You had to pay 5% royalties on that revenue. So now they've upped that to waive all royalties. Now you only have to pay it. What was it? It was $1
million.
$1 million. Okay. I opened my mouth to say $1 million, and then I was like, "That's a lot of money." Is that right? No, that is right.
Yeah, no, it is right. Yeah.
So Unreal
royalty
Engine
free up to $1 million.
So Unreal Engine is now essentially free for indie developers, like people who are not going to make that much money, or might make that money if they're lucky. Like it's just free now, and so that just opens just absurd possibilities for independent developers. And I have not paid very close attention to what Unity is doing. But if I remember right, Unity uses a slightly different business model than they do, and Unity raised its prices, I think, earlier this year too. And so Unity is very quickly becoming a less appealing option, and I'm very, very curious as to what Unity's answer to that is going to be. But this is absolutely opened up. I've seen a lot of independent developers on my Twitter feed talking about how great that one move on its own is. But then the other thing that Epic did is we already knew that this was coming, but it actually officially happened. They have launched their Epic Online services for developers for free. It's basically just this SDK that you can, sort of apply to whatever game it makes sense to apply it to, and you basically get like this integration that lets you use Epic's, technology and services to, you get like a friend, you can put friends lists in your game, you can put Epic accounts, you can do, it seems like you can do like cross-platform play with it. If your game is capable of doing that, you can do cross-platform play. You can do, I think in-game chat was in there. Like,
yeah. It's a lot. I didn't
pull the list up in front of me, but it's basically just this suite of services that Epic has been using in games like Fortnite that developers can just put in their games now for free through Epic. Like, you can just do it. That too is just absolutely incredible, because things like cross-platform and things like friends lists and things, those take time and work to implement, and they are difficult to get right, and you have to have your servers correct. Now, granted, it ties them to Epic accounts, which is what Epic wants. They want developers to be sort of buying into this Epic system, and they also want more users in the Epic system, because if they have an Epic account, then they could just come into Fortnite and spend money. That's the business model. That's what they get out of it, is they get more people playing Fortnite effectively. But yeah, it's very interesting. They're doing all of these things specifically for developers, and specifically to sort of put together this kind of like open ecosystem. And yeah, Zach, you mentioned Steam, and I think it's interesting because Epic has kind of this situation where they are not, we talk about them in competition with Steam a lot, but they aren't just a storefront, right? Like, they are also making a game engine, and they are also Valve, I guess,
they're much more of a platform than Valve is at this point. I mean, obviously Steam is a storefront, but like, I consider when we talk about, Epic having a friends list implementation and building all these systems that are like very developer facing, I think of them as much more of a platform than like what you think of Steam, but maybe that's, the wrong label.
No, I don't think it's wrong. I think the thing to think about with Epic that's interesting is they have their hands in so many pots now, right? Like, right. They have a storefront to sell you games. They have a development team that is making games, and in fact is making the biggest game in the world currently. That game also has doubled as a social network for many people. They are also making an engine in which people can make games for all these different platforms. They have these services that let people do cross-platform play and do friends list and all these things and all these different games. They have all these little things. They have mobile. Their games on mobile.
They just started a publishing wing. With crazy good deals for the developers that they sign as well.
They're buying up store exclusives. They're doing all these things, and all of these things very clearly have connections with one another, right? Like, they all very clearly benefit one another and draw people into this sort of, I don't know, like, metaverse of Epic Games things. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to see what Epic does in the coming years. I admit that it worries me a little bit, kind of in the same way that Amazon worries me. Yeah. Or like just in the sense that Amazon already has its hands in so many technological pots that it's now, bad, and Jeff Bezos is going to be a trillionaire, and nobody should ever be a trillionaire, really. There's just no reason to be. I don't think Epic's anywhere near that level of evil at the moment. Right now, they seem like a company that's doing some nice things for indie developers, and I can't get mad about that. But yeah, I'm interested to see how all of these sort of interconnecting bits work together as we enter the next generation and sort of benefit one another. I am also very interested to see and I actually, self-promotion, I did get a chance to interview Tim Sweeney and the other folks over at Epic about, all of this. It's over at gamesindustry.biz. You should read it. I thought it was good. But I did ask them in the interview, I asked them what this meant because they're going to bring Fortnite to Unreal Engine 5 sometime mid-2021. And I asked them, what this means for Fortnite. Like, what does that make Fortnite capable of doing now? I mean, obviously it'll look prettier, but like, is there anything else that Fortnite will be capable of doing that it couldn't do before? And Good old Tim Sweeney didn't want to talk about Fortnite. He brushed it off, and he just said that he was not developing Fortnite. That's the Fortnite team. He's in charge of Epic Games. Fair. I still think he knows the answer to that question.
Yeah.
That man has a plan in his head of what Fortnite's going to become.
It'll be interesting to see what happens to Fortnite, especially since whatever they do, it still has to run on the Switch because it's got a large player base on that platform.
And mobile.
John, I say this lovingly, but of course this conversation comes back to it's got to run on the Switch.
Yeah,
I
think that
So in this case, it does.
I think you get. Other sites smarter than me asked the question about how does this scale down to the Switch and mobile devices? How does Unreal Engine 5 do that? And he didn't. I didn't see any particular specifics, but he seemed fairly confident that it would scale down well. I don't know. I think that there is a coming capacity to do things with Fortnite that we could not possibly fathom. Coming from a game that would still be functional on mobile and Switch. Their goal, for better or for worse, is to have this unified gaming community. And Sweeney said as much in my interview with him. He wants to bring the gaming community together. Now, does he want to bring it all together for the profit of Epic Games? The answer is probably yes. But there are still benefits that can be reaped from this. And I'm really, really excited to see what independent developers do. We won't be seeing the fruits of that until 2022 at the earliest, probably much later than that. But I'm very, very interested to see what they do with that.
So Justin, go ahead.
Sorry, just so your hand up.
Yeah. So one more note just about kind of the developer side of things from what I saw from this Unreal Engine 5 demo and some of these moves that Epic is making. I'm really excited to see how this will affect smaller developers because Epic has purchased Quixel, which does a lot of these photogrammetry scans. That the reason the textures and stuff looked so amazing in that demo that we saw are Quixel scans. And those are free and available to every single Unreal Engine developer now. Stuff like Lumen means real-time global illumination is going to be available to every single developer. Developers aren't going to have to, say they had to outsource some assets, they're not going to have to spend time downsizing them to fit in their game with this whole new nanite system. I'm really excited to see how this impacts smaller developers because it really does make high-end visuals much more attainable and less. I mean, obviously, there's still going to be a difference between a studio that has the backing of Sony or Epic or EA or Activision or whatever. But I think there's a lot of really cool technologies that I think indie developers could use in really cool gameplay ways, especially global illumination and stuff, that is now going to be in reach for a lot of smaller teams. And I really can't wait to see how that pans out.
It's a combination of the two, right? It's in reach and it's free.
Yeah.
Derek.
Yeah.
Derek.
So if I may, the what is the name of the engine again with the not the engine, but the system? You load in cinematic quality assets and they get rendered at a lower. Nanite. Thank you. The thing about Nanite, to me, I think that's actually exciting. It's funny, we're all focusing because this is what they talked about when they did the presentation. This idea of loading in massively high quality assets and it basically scaling down in performance, based on the needs of how many triangles are actually necessary to detail a single pixel, yada, yada, yada. I don't actually think that that's going to see a lot of use in that way. I think where it becomes very helpful is for Unreal Engine 5 as a multi-platform, engine. Because, of course, you can't just load down a bunch of cinematic assets and 8K textures into your game, because then your file sizes are just going to be stupid fucking big, and that's going to be a problem when storage is at a premium on this super, super expensive NVMe solid-state storage that, we need to be using.
I want to know what the file size of this small level demo is.
A fucking nightmare. But here's the thing. You can, for example, if my understanding and the understanding of a lot of other people, educated people I'm seeing talk about this, are correct, the scalability of it, the intense scalability of it, means that you can create your assets for your highest quality, like, benchmark point. Like, what's your most powerful system out there? Probably the Xbox Series X. And then, in theory, as long as you're not concerned about file size, which you kind of would be, but you do not have to go and make a different set of assets for a Switch or a mobile or whatever game, because Unreal Engine 5 is going to render that model in basically it's not really a lower polygon count, but basically, and that's going to be really helpful. It's not a port to Switch button, and it's not exclusively about Switch. It's actually, I think, going to play more into mobile than anything else.
Yeah, definitely mobile.
But there's a reason Fortnite is going to be headlining, I think, the Unreal Engine 5, but it's going to vastly streamline this process for studios that want to create games across a wide variety of hardwares. I mean, we're hearing that we may still see 2 separate power models of Xbox for this next generation. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We know we're going to have mid-gen refreshes. They need to work on the Switch now and whatever Nintendo comes out with before Unreal Engine 6 launches, because
I still say we're getting a Switch Pro. I
think we'll see a Switch Pro.
I think
I have no insider knowledge on that. I just think
it needs to serve across a broad variety of PC specifications. I think it would play very well with NVIDIA's DLSS technology that lets them basically scale up. Zach, you might be better at explaining this than me, but maybe not, because we both had something to drink. But DLSS...
This demo actually was using reconstruction. It wasn't DLSS, but it actually was using the temporal upsampling that Unreal Engine 4 has to hit 4K.
Yeah, because it was just native, which again, Justin, we gotta move. We have other topics, but I want to hit on this thing, which is like this demo. Again, work in progress. They will optimize the engine, and it will perform better at launch when developers have their hands on it.
It's not on final tools, engine, hardware.
Running on PS5 hardware, it was natively running at they got it up to 4K, but it was running at 1440p at 30 FPS. And they managed to do some stuff on the back end and bring it up to 4K, which is great. And I also think that like this is like the continuation of diluting what it means to be true 4K, and I think that's good. It's a useless native 4K is a useless thing to throw your hardware behind. One thing I wanted to say really quickly, and we're happy to move on to the next topics, and I want you guys to weigh in before we say this, is like I do think it's generally very interesting to see Epic partner with Sony on this deal with the PS5, given that very few Sony first-party studios actually utilize Unreal Engine 5, and Xbox Game Studios largely do use, like, one of the best-looking current-generation games using Unreal is Gears of War 5, which is near and dear to me, obviously, but also, like, it's a curious pairing, right? Like, obviously, one of the things that Tim Sweeney harped on was the SSD that is in the PS5 being far and away much better than what you see on PC and Xbox, but I nonetheless thought that was interesting, and we don't have to talk about that because we have other topics that are way more interesting than me.
I just thought that Aaron Greenberg's tweet was really funny.
Oh God!
That classic Greenberg.
X gonna give it to you?
Yeah. On the most powerful console, like it was just so silly. No, you're right to point that out, Zach. It is very interesting. I mean, I guess it at the gentlest reading, it means maybe we see more PS5 games running on Unreal. Yeah. I do think I am seeing a lot of, I don't know really how engines work or how any of that works, but I'm seeing a lot of conversation on my Twitter timeline from a lot of the indie developers that I follow that Unity needs to step its shit up. Like in just in terms of like business model, but also in terms of what it can do. And I am very interested to see what their answer to this is. But I mean, just aside from that, Sony's decision-making for the reveal of their PS5 has been very interesting so far. Not bad, but just, I think, interesting. And
but did you see that dumb comment they released where they were like, wait till you see the sales before you start gauging our marketing performance?
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Okay.
All
right. So there is something that before we move on to the next topic, so something actually happened during the podcast that I just want to touch on very lightly. We finally got some new Super Nintendo games announced for the Switch for May. And you know what? You know what? Yeah. And check this out, Justin. Check this out. Like, there are so many classic games for Super Nintendo, right? Like timeless games. Like, I don't know, any of the Final Fantasy games, or any of the Donkey Kong Country games, or
what did Nintendo pull out of
or Final
calculations?
Fury, or anything. And here's what we got. We got
John,
Operation
you're just yelling.
You're just
Okay,
it's
all right.
the audio
calm
is
it
so
down.
crunchy.
Yeah,
calm it down.
I can't
Okay.
even understand you. You sound like a blown out McDonald's speaker.
Okay, so here's what we got, Justin. We got Operation Logic Bomb, Paneled Upon, and Wild
Panel
Gun.
Upon's good.
I don't know what any of that shit is. But I
Paneled
do
Upon's
know
good.
I do know that none of it is Super Mario RPG. I do know that none of it is Final Fantasy. I do know that none of it is Donkey Kong Country or Chrono Trigger, and whatever. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. What's the next topic?
I had a final thing I wanted to say about the Unreal Engine thing.
Go ahead,
sort of-
Derek.
yeah. So I kind of got close to touching on this earlier, but we need to move along and not get too deep into just the lighting discussion. But it's worth mentioning, like I said, that global illumination is supported across the board with Unreal Engine 5. All of what we were seeing was basically only developed and shown using the kind of core graphics standards. It did not include any AMD or NVIDIA specific enhancements, which, considering AMD and NVIDIA are both going with kind of different architectural ways of ray tracing, and understanding that ray tracing technology and like NVIDIA's RTX series of cards do not use... The easy way to explain this is that the RT cores and the ray tracing cores in a NVIDIA ray tracing card are there specifically for the ray tracing function. They don't do a lot for you outside of ray tracing technology. So it's a little bit of extra free overhead for that functionality. That's a really dumb way to simplify it. But basically you can actually expect, since the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X are both going to implement AMD's version of ray tracing technology, you can actually expect lighting to be a combination, probably, and Justin, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a combination of that global illumination system with Unreal Engine 5, and then also ray tracing assisted where it would be at its most effective as like an accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be
It's hard to say. We don't know anything about how AMD is doing ray tracing yet,
Yeah.
even though it's been confirmed in both of the consoles and in GPUs coming this fall. We don't know how they're doing it. So it's really hard to say right now, but the cool thing is this basically has a really high quality solution that doesn't have the same heavy cost as ray tracing, so we can use some of those cheaper ray tracing things to enhance visuals while using this, which is really neat.
because if you try to use ray tracing on like a PC game and you don't have an RTX card, you could buy your game runs like butts. So yeah, I'm very excited.
Let's
go on to some of these other
Can we
game topics that we want to.
Can we please talk about Paper Mario? Bless
Yes.
me with Paper Mario.
We were all blessed with Paper Mario today, out of the fucking blue.
Yeah, what a absolute, like, I was just on the couch playing my Vita, and I happened to look at Twitter right as it happened, and I thought it was that fake Nintendo account at first. Like, I was like, oh,
I did too.
I was like, oh, they got us again. It's the fake Nintendo of America account. And then I was just ready to dismiss it, and then I saw the check mark, and I was like, what is this? And it looks gorgeous.
Can we discuss how the opening of that trailer very much makes it seem like it's something made by a fan account?
Yeah, it's weirdly horror themed.
It's very
it's funny
like,
as shit. It's great.
Fold yourself and become reborn. I'm like, that's some horror movie shit. Like, so so Peach is evil now. That's what I take away from that. She's been folded.
Well, she's been
creased. No, creased. It's creased. I'm sorry.
She's corrupted by the hiss.
you have to crease yourself and become reborn. I just love that that Bowser is all creased up and he's super pissed about it. He's like, oh, I don't want to die. But like, I think this looks beautiful, and it looks like the perfect combination of RPG elements from the older games and the more action adventure elements of games like Super Paper Mario and Color Splash. What do we think of that circle grid that appears to be where the turn-based battles are taking place? I wasn't able to get too much of a read on that.
Was it where the battles? Because I thought I caught a snippet that was an actual like old school, like
there were a couple snippets.
Yeah, but so I thought that was maybe some kind of like environmental element that they were playing with, maybe as like a unique mechanic in a dungeon or something. I don't know. You know, a lot of those Paper Mario, you know, dungeons and chapters, or, you know, the environments have some kind of weird thing to them. That's just basic level design that I'm describing that video games do.
I am more stunned. I'm more stunned at the fact that, Paper Mario is something that people have been asking for a long time. It's a very popular Nintendo franchise, and they just dropped it on Twitter with zero announcement, zero fanfare. They were like, "Here it is."
There was supposed to be a direct.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, of course, yeah, and I just like it. It's good. I think there's a bigger conversation to be had here about how Nintendo is going to do the rest of the game announcements for the year, because Reb is on the money. Like, this was obviously supposed to be announced in a direct, and it makes me wonder, are we just going to get big Nintendo announcements piecemeal throughout the summer? Especially since, like, dude, this game is coming out in 2 months. Like this is coming out really, really soon. And I feel like only Nintendo could get away with announcing and launching a major first party title within 2 months. Like, that is wild.
Yeah, that's pretty uniquely Nintendo. And they're, I can't think of anyone else that really can get away with titles that big doing that. But yeah, I mean, I fully expect that this could be the rest of Nintendo's year. This could be kind of what we're looking at from every developer for a while. You know, hey, we're getting close to release and we're pretty sure this will be out in 2 or 3 months, rather than, you know, I'm gonna, you know, call it, you know, from the stands and swing for it. Like, yes, this will be February 2021. Like, I wouldn't want to make that call right now. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to say Q1 2021. I might wait till we're only a couple months away and I can be more certain of at least a month. You know?
mean, Ubisoft, not to pivot to Ubisoft financial calls, but Ubisoft kind of did something like this today during their call. They said, we've got 5 AAA titles coming. You know about 4 of them. One's a mystery that we'll announce later. Here are our projections for the full year. One of these titles might get delayed because of COVID. We don't know, so we're giving you projections for if it gets delayed, and we're giving you projections for if it doesn't. And I don't know. I thought that was an interesting way to handle it.
Can I also point out, real quick, Justin, real quick, I promise. Who else loved I choose to believe that was a Metroid tease of some kind at the end. I choose to believe that. I choose to believe, Reb. Like, I don't know what.
No, it was
exactly
a taunt. It was like when Reggie wore the pin. Like, it's just Nintendo likes to taunt.
Do you all not
us.
remember Nintendo tweeting out the picture of Chibi Robo on fire when the Direct got moved?
Yeah.
Literally just to fuck with people on the internet who were too online arguing about Directs.
Yeah.
Like,
I choose to believe.
Nintendo likes to put references in things, and they like to fuck with people. They clearly do it. I have a t-shirt of the Flaming Chibi Robo because of that tweet. Like, you know, I'm just saying, I would not expect that to be a tease that Metroid Prime Trilogy or new 2D Metroid is coming out.
I know deep in my heart it's probably nothing. But at the same time, in these dark times, Derek, I need something to hold on to keep
They're
from
just
getting
reaching under your
away.
armpit and tickling you a little bit. That's all they're doing.
Justin, did you Justin? Yes, Justin did.
Sorry.
No, I didn't. Well, honestly, all I can really say is just a couple weeks ago, I was like, man, I really want to play another Paper Mario, and then this got announced. So I'm very, very happy about it. And I also just realized that like the other game we were thinking about talking about tonight is coming out on the same day.
Same day.
Yeah, like which is kind of bonkers to think about.
I would also say that, like, you know, one of the things that you, Justin, and then Derek, you mentioned earlier, in terms of announcing, like, in the era of COVID, announcing a game on Twitter and then just having it come out in 2 months, actually probably works out fine for Nintendo, given what we have heard as rumors for what they have coming our way this year, which is just like a shitload of ports for Mario's 35th anniversary. Because if you had a new game, obviously announcing like Paper Mario's gonna be fine. It's gonna be a fine game. It'll probably be really, you know, it'll probably be great. But also, like, you don't need a 6-month hype train for Mario Sunshine coming to Switch. You just don't.
That's true.
And like announcing it 4 weeks ahead of time is perfectly fine, and that game will still sell really well because the Switch has a really good adoption rate for first party games. Like, it's gonna be fine. Like, I think that Nintendo is actually in a unique position where they didn't have a lot of like first party bangers coming out this year, but they had enough decent ports coming that like they're gonna weather this just fine. And it probably, frankly, better than they would have in a launch year otherwise. Like, I think they're gonna do well. And I think the new industry trend of announcing a game and launching it shortly afterward is gonna work really well for them. So I don't know.
I like
Wine
Paper
Jack is
Mario.
excited.
I like it so
I
much.
hope, I super hope that didn't sound as a slight to Paper Mario, Reb. I didn't mean it as a slight.
No, I didn't take it as a slight. I just wanted to say I haven't gotten to talk about it yet, so I just wanted to say I like Paper Mario. That's literally it.
We stand a Paper King.
We do stand a Paper King. I think so. The Paper Mario games, I've only played Color Splash. That's the only one I've played, which I think offends people because people don't like Color Splash. I thought Color Splash was fine. It was a solid game. It was cute. It was lovely. I love that Nintendo likes to make these games with its you know, internal studios, its first party studios, and studios it works really close with, where they do like these really like tactile kinds of things, these kind of arts and craftsy visual styles. They do Paper Mario, Yoshi's Woolly World and Crafted World were like that. They had the Yarn Kirby game, and the Claymation Kirby game. They've also done Animal Crossing. If you look at Animal Crossing, the textures on that, everything looks like felt. The Link's Awakening, everything looked like little toys. I love those kind of weird, fun texture things that they like to do with their cartoony games, and I'm excited for that. I'm a little concerned about the battle system because I think it's actually going to be what people want out of it, which is that turn-based kind of timed button press system. But that concerns me because the other kind of Paper Mario game that I've played is Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, which is a Mario and Luigi game, which I love those. But it had like some crossover with Paper Mario. But that game had that kind of battle system, and that was on the 3DS, and I had to review that in 5 days, and that was the game that fucked up my wrists. So, yeah. But I love Paper Mario. It's super, super sweet, and God, the writing in those games is just hysterical.
Reb, if you can, I don't know if you have if you can hunt down like a GameCube and a copy of Thousand Year Door, you should play that. Like
I've played a small amount of Thousand Year Door. I played a very small amount of it at one point. It was great, but yeah, I've been told I would love that game. I have a GameCube. It was my first console. I still have it.
Yeah, no, Thousand Year Door. I mean, that's just a solid series in general with a few missteps. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to mention about Paper Mario, or did we want to pivot over to Ghosts of Tsushima?
There is no such thing as a bad Paper Mario game. They're all good. They're all valid. They're all lovely. This looks like red meat for the fans. I'm very excited to see what happens because there's this trend of Nintendo franchises getting brand new releases on the Switch. Some of them very experimental, some of them very return to the roots, and it doesn't really matter what they do. The games go on to sell better than like any other game in the franchise. So I can just assume that this is going to be the best-selling Paper Mario game, but like it'll be really exciting to see if something more traditional that a lot of diehard fans have really been clamoring for can also be the game that really blows up sales-wise for the franchise for the first time in a while.
I mean, if any console is going to do it, it's the Switch. I mean, everything fucking sells on the system.
Yeah. I mean,
everything. I mean, almost everything. So, especially Nintendo's first-party titles, they all do incredibly well on Switch. So,
hey, Derek.
Yeah,
Derek, I like your hat.
Thank you. What hat?
I love your hat.
Do you guys ever drink 3.5 glasses of wine?
Hell.
And then find you're suddenly tanked with 15 minutes left in the podcast?
I sure fucking do, buddy.
We've hit that point.
About Ghosts of
Let's
Tsushima.
talk about some Akira Kurosawa looking shit.
Zach, do you want to kick off our Ghost of Tsushima talk?
I do, but I also want to give it to Justin too because I know he's been following the game a little closer than me. But Ghost of Tsushima, we have only seen 2 or 3 trailers for the game since its announcement in 2017, which is kind
Paris
of wild.
Game. It's literally Ghost of Tsushima is both the last big PS4 first party release and the last major game Sony has announced. It was announced in 2017.
2017.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and this is probably one of the last times Sony announces a game this far out. It's great that they've given Sucker Punch this much time to get it right. But also, it's interesting to watch that game develop. You know, this is again our third peek of the game before it launches, and it's out in July after being bumped from June, so that The Last of Us could move into its spot. Today they released like 15 minutes or so of the game, showing you what exploration looks like, what offensive combat looks like, and then what stealth combat looks like, and then a little bit of how you can kind of interact with that world itself. And it looked good, if not to me subjectively. It looked very much in the way that Spider-Man to me was an iteration and a meditation on the superhero games we've seen this generation. It felt very much like Sucker Punch was like, Assassin's Creed is really good at this, here at Shortfalls. Shadow of War was really good at this, here at Shortfalls, and we're gonna do our take on that. And Sony has a budget to like do a really good take on other popular genres, and I feel like that's what we're seeing with Ghost of Tsushima. But
Yeah,
nonetheless,
that's fair.
but nonetheless, like it feels like a good way for them to end the generation. It is not the visual
It looks
showcase.
good.
Yeah, it looks like a great way to end the generation for Sony. Yeah. That's what I have to say about
I like
it.
it's
for now.
very beautifully designed, I think I will say visually. Like, is it the single most visually impressive game in terms of fucking triangles and light bounces I've ever seen? No. But it's I love the aesthetic of it. You know, it's not often enough that we see that much love given to that kind of aesthetic and era of Japan in video games, down to like architecture and clothing and things like that. In the same way that like so much of our fantasy genre and light fantasy and gaming is very like European based. You know, so it's very pretty. I think there's nothing wrong with being just a really good version of a thing.
I hope that until
I don't think that's what you meant at all.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
That's
I think
kind of been Sucker Punch's MO too, is like they don't particularly innovate, but they just make a very good version of that thing that they're aiming for.
So, like, I'll just say, like, Seven Samurai is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Akira Kurosawa films, and you know, I was beside myself when they announced today that they had a black and white filter that you can apply from at the beginning. But it's not just a black and white filter; it adds like extra wind, apparently, so it makes everything a lot more dramatic. And it's I have always like this is the Akira Kurosawa video game I have always wanted, and that is how I will be playing this game from the moment I start it to the moment I finish it, because that shit fucking rules. That is so cool. What an homage to such a classic director. I could not be happier about that. Way to go, Sucker Punch. That shit is awesome.
I usually think people are being stupid fucking hipsters when they say things like that, but with Ghost of Tsushima, like, I'm kind of maybe feeling the same way. Again, just because of the attachment to Kurosawa's films. God, just it's a pretty looking game, and I'm very excited for it. I don't know what to say. Samurai's good.
One thing,
Samurai Ghost.
Oh, Reb, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I think
go
it
ahead.
actually appeals to me. I want to be able to play it because I'm not gonna have a PS4, and I guess I might get a PS5. I don't know. But I think it looks lovely because it reminds. I mean, it's beautiful, but it reminds me of older Assassin's Creed titles. Like the kind of original trilogy, sort of just the style of it. And I love those. I love those a lot. I love I love being able to play stealth games and yeah, I don't know, just this pretty it's the kind of thing that I would want out of that kind of game, going open world, right? Like having this beautiful open world to explore and these kinds of like visual cues as to where things are instead of just a bunch of shit all over a map. But then also having these sections where it's valuable to be stealthy and valuable to sit there and be and calculating and plan out your moves and think about it. Like I love that. And so if there's an opportunity to play this game, I think that I might. Also, you can pet the fox.
That looks great.
Okay, the animal buddies is such a good idea. So like, because one of the only things we really knew about exploration in this game was they said we're not going to have typical waypoints. That was it. So how they're doing it is really kind of genius through like environmental cues and stuff. Like you can still mark a point if you know about something. If you already know about it, you can still mark a point on the map. But the wind is essentially, it reminded me actually a lot of Wind Waker, where you're kind of very aware of how the wind moves around you, and like you can watch the wind blow toward your destination, and you see everything bend in the wind, and like your cape
so cool.
and stuff, and then you'll be flying around, and then a bird might come up alongside your horse, and so you follow that bird, and then you can find like a shrine off the beaten path. There's foxes that do similar things, and you can pet the foxes. Like, I really, really like that stuff. It's really fitting for the setting and the genre. And it's really cool. Because I'm also really used to animals in open world games just being to terrorize the player or more crafting materials. So it's kind of nice that we can see them as just friends.
As buddies.
I did tweet this earlier, but I think it's worth like echoing. One of the things I think, to echo Justin's point about like the animals and the way the world interacts with you as the player, one of the things I think is really interesting from a design perspective here with Ghost of Tsushima, is that the way the animals interact with you and draw the player's attention and guide you is a really, really smart way of keeping players' eyes off of the corners of the screen, whether that's like a waypoint or a mini map or whatever. Like having, like, I don't know if you guys all watched the trailer, but like there's like a little bird that at one point guides you to where you're trying to go, and I think that's a genius way of funneling the player's attention and keeping their eye on the player rather than like a little mini map that's like external to the experience. Like when I think of a mini map, they're kind of fourth wall, right? A mini map is like a very much like a player focused thing that is like out of the world that you're in. And when you instead remove the mini map and put a bird on the screen, you are doing the same function but keeping the player immersed in the world that they're playing in. And so one of the things I compared that to earlier was think of Skate 4, or not Skate 4. Wow, I wish. Keep that in line with the Skate series, where Skate was like, Tony Hawk has always been about watching your player move through the space, but that's ridiculous. Skateboarding is about the board and the way your feet interact with that board and move through their environment. And I think that really resonates with the design you're seeing in Ghost of Tsushima, where you are following these environmental cues to keep your focus really where it should be, which is you as a player, and less of the fourth wall breaking things here. There are things I have issue with Ghost of Tsushima in the way we saw it today. I think it was a little bit closer to other games than I wanted to see. It's a little too iterative for my taste. I think that we saw some visual downgrades over, which I hate to say that because it feels like it's the Puzzlegate shit and that sucks. I really think they've just leaned harder into like a more artistic style than photorealism. But like, there were some departures that I didn't love, but I loved to see the designers at play here in a way that felt like they were like focusing really heavily on player immersion. And then when you see that paired with how they're doing their photo mode, how they're doing their black and white mode, it feels like this is Sucker Punch's most like immersive, be in our space and play here game we have seen from that studio. I don't know. I'm stoked.
Yeah. I think I'm good, and I'm glad they also said it's like, yeah, there's also going to be a full Japanese voice setting with full motion capture, speech match, lip sync and stuff too. Like there's a lot of really clever, there's a lot of really cool things that I think people have requested in like stylistically and immersion wise that I think Sucker Punch has brought to the table here. Which
if you do not play this game with the Japanese voice track, then you're not just a cop, you're the chief of police. Like this this game demands the Japanese voice track. Like it just that is how I will be playing. Black and white with extra wind and the Japanese voice track. That is how this game is meant to be played.
But yeah, it looks really cool, and I mean, this is going to be a really good send-off summer for the PS4. Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima a month apart. Really cool.
I'm more excited for this game, gameplay-wise, than The Last of Us, for sure.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, it looks.
I mean, that's totally valid. Like I've
seen a couple people doing polls on it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna buy them both day one anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
No, I mean, I'm gonna buy both because like it's June and July. I'm gonna be bored, but like,
what's wild about that is Vicky. Like The Last of Us is one of her favorite games of all time. She's played it like 5 or 6 times, and she was really excited about The Last of Us 2. And she's like, as excited as I am, I don't know if I can play it right now because I think it's just too much for me.
That's fair, and
right now, yeah.
I think there's gonna be a lot of people in that boat, which I can totally see, I can totally understand, because that game's looking pretty grim. But yeah, no, I'm excited. I really hope Sony does this kind of presentation for some of their games more often. I know it was kind of necessitated by COVID, because usually they do like a round of, people that get press that get like a couple hours of hands-on, but it was really great to see like an 18-minute video with developers talking, and like, because I've seen people asking questions about literally every single thing that they showed today. They're like, okay, we're going to start off with exploration, and then we're going to show you combat as a samurai, and then we're going to show you playing that same thing as the ghost style, and then show you how you can customize your character and your experience. And I thought it was great and really informative. It was fun to watch. Didn't give away any story details. I thought it was a really good showcase of the game, and I really hope they do it more often.
Well, I think we are bumping up against an hour and a half here, and it's probably time for us very extremely online people to log off. There was a lot we had a lot to talk about tonight. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to drop before we call it quits here?
May I do the closing tonight?
You may do the closing tonight,
Take
Derek.
us
Absolutely. And guys, stick around after we go out, because we got this brand new closing animation that Derek whipped up. I think you're really gonna like it.
So
Derek,
anybody got more words before we go? No?
I have no words.
just have a nice weekend.
Yeah.
Take time for yourself. Here in the Midwest, we're expecting some rain, but that doesn't mean that you can't take time to recharge and just, I don't know, take time for yourself.
Yeah. Well, folks, it ain't always poetry. We don't always agree. Around these parts, we do always keep it real. So until next time, be good to your neighbors.